Hey everybody, it's your girl Urban Farm Sister.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'll wait a few seconds. I know there's a delay on the different platforms. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about how to prepare your plants to come indoors for the winter. My name is Nadia Ruffin, for those of you that do not know me. So this broadcast is showing up on Black Farmers Nationwide, Black Growth Garden, Bugging Out with Entomologist Nadia Ruffin, Urban Farm Sisters Facebook page, Afro Agri Academy's Facebook page, and also on Urban Farm Sister YouTube. So there's multiple ways you can watch this. If you're not subscribed, I hope you would subscribe to my YouTube or follow my Facebook. But if not, you can also look at this same broadcast on these platforms. All right, so a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Nadia Ruffin. I'm located in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm an entomologist. I'm a scientist, farmer, researcher, and educator. Um, I have 2 degrees. I have 1 degree from the Ohio State University, Bachelor's of Science in Agriculture. There, I studied animal sciences. I was pre veterinary medicine as well as I also minored in entomology. I'm owner of Kiwi Produce and Agri Academy Inc. I'm co-owner of Agri Academy Labs. I'm an urban farmer. I grow um, plants and produce and things in hydroponics, as well as I purchased a city lot, residential lot here in Cincinnati, and I farm on that. I keep bees, and I also have chickens, and I teach classes on how to do both of those. I have a year's experience in floriculture. My family actually owns a flower shop here in Cincinnati called Blossoms Florist. Before I really got into the whole farming research and um, all the things that I do now, I used to do research and veterinary and medical research, and I also worked in public health as a disease investigator, and I also used to monitor certain diseases. Um, so I have a very dense background in science. So a lot of times when you see me posting things, me having that background in science, I can kind of get a little deep into what I'm talking about. But I've been in science and studying this stuff ever since I was actually a little child. I'd like to thank my contributors for supporting my channel. I have a YouTube channel. Again, I would like for you all to subscribe. You can go to youtube.com/Urban Farm Sister. Um, if you'd like to be a contributor, beyond just subscribing, you can send contributions to my PayPal, which is NadiaRuffin@gmail.com, Cash App at @Nadia Ruffin, or you can become a patron on patreon.com/Urban Farm Sister. All right, so tonight's broadcast is sponsored by Agri Academy Inc. Agri Academy Inc. is a nonprofit research institution. Our research focus areas are agricultural, biotechnology, entomology, and technology. We also do outreach where we educate socially disadvantaged communities with an emphasis on the Black community. These are youth and adults about the agriculture industry. by teaching agri-science and scientific applications in agriculture and offering career exploration. We provide training and education online in various agricultural industries. We also offer small-scale farming entrepreneurship training, and we provide resources and technical support to those that are in our programs and things. I wanted to tell you all about a class that we have coming up. It starts September 20th. It's called the Black Empowerment Through Agriculture. This is a free 12-week course, online course. It's upon completion, enrollees will receive a certificate and the tools needed to start an operation. A select group of these students will also actually go on to enroll in our 8-week specialty hands-on programs that will take place in the spring. To be considered for this course, you have to meet the following criteria. You have to be an adult. You must identify as Black or African American. You must live in the Cincinnati tri-state area. If you do not live in the Cincinnati tri-state area, there is some limited space for those outside the area. All these classes will take place online. So if you're interested in registering for that, being part of that class, you can go to www.agriacademyinc.org/beta. All right, so tonight I'm going to talk about a few things. I know a lot of you that are in these groups, you have plants and things that you want to bring indoors. That's great and all, but a lot of times people will bring plants in and they'll cause other problems because they brought those plants in there. So we're going to talk about some of those issues and problems and how we can resolve them or prevent them if you're going to bring plants in. So tonight we're going to talk about what is entomology, really quickly, what that is. We're going to talk about debugging your plants, talk about quarantine, identification, treatment, and common insects that get transported indoors when people actually bring their plants in. And then we're going to talk about when you actually bring your plants indoors after you've gone through the whole debugging process, what are some plant requirements and troubleshooting those issues. So what's entomology? Well, entomology means the study of insects, their relatives, and other invertebrates. It actually just means the study of insects, but what happens is everything that's a creepy crawly, as some people call them, are pushed into that same category as insects, even though they may not even qualify as insects. So some invertebrates that are not insects are annelids, which are worms, arthropods, which are insects, spiders, ticks, centipedes, millipedes, and even things like snails and slugs, which are mollusks, they also get lumped into that. All right, so debugging your plants. So there's a 4-step process that you must go through to debug your plants. First, you must quarantine, you want to inspect, and then you want to treat, and then you want to repeat. So we're going to talk about quarantining first. I'm pretty sure you all know what this word is because you've heard it over and over again over the last year since the coronavirus outbreaks and all that stuff. But the word quarantines come from the Italian word quarantina, which means 40 days. By quarantining or isolating your plants for 40 days, you minimize the risk of spreading pests and diseases to your other plants and into your home. You'll want to do this with any new plant you bring into your home, whether it's a plant that's been sitting outside because you sat it out there at the beginning of the spring, or say it's a plant that you just bought from a nursery or a greenhouse. You'll want to quarantine that plant. If you don't, you'll be putting yourself at risk of infecting plants that you may already have, either in your home or you even need to quarantine plants that you're going to put outdoors. Because if you don't, you're going to end up bringing problems in that are going to require you to do a lot of work that you could have prevented if you had just quarantined. So if you have the space in your home or your apartment and things, you want to place plants in a room that's a distance away from other plants. You'll be amazed how efficient insects are and other arthropods are at finding other plants, even in your home. You can have a plant in the basement, and somehow they can still find it if it's upstairs. So just be aware of that. So if you can quarantine or isolate these plants into a room off to themselves until you have that 40-day quarantine where you've done the treating and things, it'd be wise and it'd be best for you to do that. All right, so I'm going to inspect. You want to inspect your plants for abnormalities. You want to inspect top and the undersides of leaves. Inspect stems, branches, flowers, developing fruit. If you're bringing in, say, a plant that has fruit and things on it. You'll also want to inspect during the day and also again at night. There's a lot of different arthropods and things that are only active at night, and so you will miss them if you only inspect it during the day. So your plants are going to be in this isolated area, and you'll want to go in and you'll want to inspect them in the morning and at night, and then you'll want to treat. Well, first you want to look. First, you want to decide what you're going to be looking at. You want to look for eggs and egg cases, webs and webbing, cocoons, insects and other arthropods, nests, other animals besides arthropods, things like snakes, lizards, rodents, birds. They have all, they utilize these plants to make their home, to find food and things. So you want to make sure that you're not bringing them to your home. So you want to make sure you're inspecting the plants and things like that. You also want to check the plant for fungi as well as bacteria, any type of diseases or anything that looks weird on the plant. You want to inspect it and get that under control. You also want to check to make sure the plant isn't damaged. Look for broken branches, leaves, things like that, because there could always be something hiding. If the plant is damaged, it could be something that has crawled up inside of it as well. So identification is very important. You must know what you are dealing with. Most insects and vertebrates have specific treatments and controls. There is not a one size fits all treatment. Misidentification or using the wrong treatment can be hazardous to your plants, wildlife, human, and environmental health. And most things are not pests and do not require treatment. But you may have to just like hand remove something and put it back outside. But you need to know what you're looking at. I know being in the groups and things, people will they have some very interesting methods of how they can control or how you should control certain insects, and some of that stuff will kill the plant. It can make you sick, kill things in your environment, affect wildlife, kill pollinators and things like that. So it's important that you know what you're having to deal with. So if you're dealing, say, with caterpillars, which we'll talk about a little bit later, you need to know the treatments that are for caterpillars specifically for them, and not necessarily throwing some chemical like seven dust and things on your plants. That's not healthy. Seven dust is not a treatment that you want to use. It's not organic, and it's also it's a broad spectrum, which means it covers a whole bunch of different insects, and it's not going to discriminate against the beneficial insects versus the bad ones, the ones we deem bad. It's just going to kill everything, and then it can also make you sick as well. So you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure that you educate yourself. So you must know the background life cycle of the plants you are growing, and then you also need to know the organisms that actually utilize that plant. So you need to know those organisms' life cycles. Some insects, they only have one of their developmental stages is it's the damaging part. Like when it comes to butterflies and moths, the caterpillars are the damaging part of the butterfly life cycle. But once they turn into butterflies and moths, all they do is consume nectar, or if some moths and things don't even have mouth parts to even consume anything. So you need to know the background of the insects that actually utilize the plant, but you need to know a lot about the plant that you're actually growing as well. You also need to know their feeding behaviors. Some adults feed, some adults don't feed. Some larvae are predatory, and then when they turn into adults, they may become, destructive to the plant. So you need to know that animals or that insect's life cycle. All right. So treatment. Before treating, you must know what you're dealing with. Again, I'm gonna emphasize it, and I'm gonna keep repeating that you must identify what is present. You must know, what is there and how that thing goes about feeding, so you know what treatment to actually use. And then once you figure out what you have, then you need to use what is called the integrated pest management system. All right, so the integrated pest management system, or IPM, is an environmentally friendly, common sense approach to controlling pests. It focuses on pest prevention and use pesticides only as needed, and you want to use those as a last resort. Benefits of integrated pest management. You want to reduce the number of pests, you want to reduce the number of pesticide applications, and you want to save money while protecting human, animal, and environmental health. So in nature, plants, insects, and other creatures go hand in hand. Plant, Plants have evolved to have their own defenses where they develop hairs, thorns, toxins, chemicals, biological controls. They form mutualistic relationships with certain predatory insects. List goes on. Most of the time, your plants become infested by just being outdoors, or you bring plants and other items from places and you do not quarantine them before introducing them into your home, garden, or farm. Plants purchased from nurseries and greenhouses usually have insects and other arthropods. Soil can also be infested as well. All right, so when you're looking at your plant and you just brought it in, you want to look at, is this an acceptable pest level? The emphasis is on control but not eradication. IPM holds that wiping out an entire pest population is often impossible, and the attempt can be expensive and unsafe. So you want to do some preventative cultural practices. You want to quarantine. You want to do crop sanitation, remove any disease-infested plants, cleaning, pruning, shearing to prevent spread of infection. You want to monitor. Regular observation is critically important. Observation is broken into inspection and identification, which we just talked about, and I told you how that is very important. And then, when you're going to put your plants back out in the spring, you want to maybe set up some mechanical controls. Um, should a pest reach an unacceptable level, you want to use mechanical methods are the first options. They include simple hand removing, picking, barriers, traps, vacuuming, tilling, things like that. So biological controls. Natural biological processes and materials can provide control with acceptable environmental impact and often at low cost. The main approach is to promote beneficial insects and other animals that eat or parasitize, target pests. There are biological insecticides derived from naturally occurring microorganisms, and we'll talk about BT extensively in a few minutes when we talk about some common insects that are brought in your home. But there's entomopathogenic fungi and entomopathogenic nematodes also fall in this category. Most biological controls are generalist, which means they are not going to specifically target a specific insect. So if you say you find a lady beetle on your plant and you decide to leave it on there, just know, and you see aphids, it may not eat all those aphids. It may find some other insect that you missed while you were doing your inspection, and it won't eat all the aphids. So you need to know that the biological controls are mostly generalists. And then if you have to resort to using pesticides, you want to use them responsibly. These are our last resort and are used as a required and often only at specific times in a pest life cycle. Um, Many new pesticides are derived from plants or naturally occurring substances, but that still does not mean that they are not dangerous. Just because it's derived from a plant, it can still have environmental as well as health um, environmental problems as well as health problems and cause health problems. All right. So after you did your inspecting, um, then you did your quarantining and things, you'll want to repeat these steps over that next 40 days. So during the quarantine isolation, you'll want to repeat your inspection and treatment weekly, every 7 to 10 days until your issues have cleared up. If you are having issues with the soil, you may need to repot the plants. I know sometimes people will have issues with ants that have created colonies inside of flower pots and things, as well as millipedes and synphilins. They can take over soil. You may have other insects and arthropods that are soil dwellers that you just can't simply, there's no treatment that you can just simply put on there and they'll just all vacate. You might just have to repot that whole plant. And I know millipedes and synphilins are main ones, but there's a lot of other things like peel bugs, or some people call them roly polies. Um, they'll infest soil, and all these things are there for a reason. Um, Most of the time they're decomposers, so you have you might have leaves that have fell in the soil, or you might have root rot going on or something, and these things are just coming in to do what they would normally do out in the wild, are out in nature, and they're just coming in to decompose, to break down that plant material, return it back to the soil so that the other plants that are still living and other creatures can benefit from those nutrients that are there. So they're supposed to be there. You put a plant outdoors. You invited them to the party. So say, they're supposed to be there. They're supposed to be on those plants. They're just doing what they're naturally supposed to do. But it becomes a problem because they clash because they become in our environments and things, and then we feel like we have to eliminate them. So if you're going to bring the plants in, you're going to you want to find a way where you can control these things, but not try to eradicate them and things like that. But they're going to be there. I mean, especially if your plant was out there. Um, if it's been out there for over 2 weeks, you're going to have problems. You're going to have things that are going to be using your plant as a home, as a food source, and things like that. So anybody have any questions before I go into a few common insects and arthropods that you might find on your plants? Hey, appreciable assets. Hey, Chandler Glover. So any questions? All right. So Gerald Lane said, "What is the real name for roly polies?" So they actually are crustaceans. They're terrestrial crustaceans. Their name is like armadillo. Hold on. I want to make sure I get this right. Okay. So their family name is like Armadillidae, and that is the official family name of roly polies. Depending on where you live, they have different names. Some people call them wood lice. They call it roly polies. They're called peel bugs. Some people call them sow bugs. Sow bugs are actually a separate group from the roly poly. Sow bugs cannot actually roll up into that little ball. So Masha Vu 007, where we cover assassin beetles, bugs. So it's only assassin bugs. Those are actually predatory. Um, so they'll be beneficial. I'm not going to cover those in this actual presentation because they're not considered pests. They're actually considered predators, and they're beneficial to that to your plants and things. I know that assassin bugs, they shouldn't be handled though because they can inflict a very painful wound on you because they have a piercing, sucking mouth part that's kind of like a hypodermic needle. And if they feel threatened, they will use that as a defense mechanism. But they are beneficial. So Tiana Liska said, "Oh, never hear wood lice before. Yeah, certain regions they call them wood lice, and then certain regions they call them roly polies, and then other places they call them peel bugs, and yeah, depending on where you live is what they're called. And like I said, this is the name for the scientific name for the roly polies. It's Armadillidae. All right, so a few common insects and arthropods. We're going to talk about caterpillars, aphids, spider mites, thrips, fungus gnats, and white flies. Let's see, I have another comment. Hold on. Masha Zoo says, I have them on my patio plants and worry about when it's time to bring them in for the winter. Um, is it a lot of them? Because that doesn't sound like assassin bugs. It sounds like you might have something else. And what type of plant are they on? If you could email me a picture of what it is, because it might not actually be assassin bugs, and it might actually be some insect that is, considered a pest. So if you guys have any insects or anything that you just don't know, you can send me a picture via email, and I can identify it and let you know, if that should be a concern or things like that. If you're seeing them on there, like you can hand remove them. Just put some gloves on and things, but I want to make sure they're actually assassin bugs and not necessarily like leaf-footed bugs or something else that's feeding on the actual plant. Assassin bugs wouldn't feed on a plant; they would feed on other insects, and it's usually not a lot of them together. Because they're predatory, they'll actually feed on each other. So it's usually only one in a certain range, because they'll eat each other. All right, so caterpillars. Caterpillars are destructive life stage of butterflies and moths. They defoliate plants, which means they feed on leaves. Always check underside of leaves and down in the middle of plants. Some caterpillars are borers, which means they burrow into the plant to feed. Check for holes in stems, buds, and fruits. If you see holes, that probably is an indication that there's something that either is living in there or had lived in there at one point in time and was feeding. Um, Also check for webbing or like nests that caterpillars may build around certain leaves and things on the plant. I have a picture of some fall webworms at this bottom picture. Um, they will actually build webs around leaves, and they'll feed on those leaves that are inside of that web. You also want to check for caterpillar frass, and that's actually just caterpillar droppings. And up here in the top right picture, this is a picture of some caterpillar droppings. It can be different. It looks different depending on the size of the caterpillar. But most likely, if you have a caterpillar, you're going to see little specks of brown. Sometimes they can get very big depending on the size of the actual caterpillar. Um, just note that if we eliminate all the caterpillars, there will be no moths or butterflies. Um, and certain treatments that we're going to talk about like now, like BT. Um, it does not discriminate for the good caterpillars or the good butterflies and moths that we want versus the bad ones who are the ones we deem bad. It does not discriminate, so it'll kill all of them. So if you're treating a plant and say like you're trying to make sure that you don't kill some monarch caterpillars that you have growing on some milkweed that's in your yard, you just need to be mindful that If you spray certain things and it gets on them, it's going to kill them as well. All right, so for caterpillars, you want to use cultural or mechanical controls. In this instance, if you're bringing a plant in and you find that it has caterpillars on it, you're going to want to hand remove those caterpillars. And then you want to use a biological control. It's a bacteria called Bacillus Theringiensis, often abbreviated as BT. It's a gram-positive soil-dwelling bacterium commonly used as a biological pesticide. Bacillus thuringiensis kerstaki is the effective strain against caterpillars. What it does is it causes sepsis and starvation. It can take 24 to 48 hours for it to take effect. So during that time, what you'll want to do is you'll want to hand remove the caterpillars that you do see, spray the BT on there, and within 24 to 48 hours, you should get the ones that you didn't see. They could have just been too small, or they could have been very camouflaged and you just didn't detect them. So Natasha Allen said, "Which moths eat our clothes?" It's not actually the moth, the caterpillars of these particular moths that come indoors. The caterpillars are the ones that actually feed on the clothes. The moths do not feed on the clothes. Um, the moths that actually are produced from these caterpillars do not even feed at all. It's the caterpillars that actually are the destructive life stage that are feeding on those clothes. And you must remember, they only feed on certain clothes. It has to be clothes that are made of actual natural fibers. So it'd be cotton and things like that. They're not going to feed on like polyester and stuff like that. But they will feed on, cotton-based things. But again, it's the caterpillars, not the moths. All right. Caterpillars can also be controlled with other biological controls. This could be ladybugs, lacewings, wasps, yellow jackets, spiders, praying mantises, wasps, uh, parasitoid wasps. These are all generalist predators, um, and they do a great job at controlling these things outdoors. But I'm pretty sure most of you do not want to release these into your home. But if you find the occasional lady beetle on your plant, you can leave it there. He or she may eat what's present or whatever. But if you start treating your plants and things, just be mindful that some of those treatments could actually kill some of the beneficial insects that you may find on there as well. In this case, the BT will not affect anything but caterpillars, but we'll talk about some other stuff that could affect other insects. All right, aphids. Aphids are small pear-shaped insects with two tube-like structures at the end of their bodies, and those are called cornicles. They come in a variety of colors from yellow, green, red, gray. There's black ones. There's all different colors. Adults will develop wings and relocate to other plants if resources become depleted. They will also develop wings for mating in the fall. Aphids have piercing, sucking mouthparts that they use to feed on plant sap and feed in large numbers. If you have an aphid infestation, what it looks like is you'll have yellowing, disfiguration, and curling of the leaves of your plant. Aphids can be controlled with biological controls. Lady beetles, lacewings, parasitic wasps, things like that will feed on aphids. But again, these are generalist predators, and then you probably don't want those particular insects crawling around in your home, even though they're beneficial. So what you have to do, you have to incorporate an actual chemical control here. And you may even have to, if the infestation is bad, like prune away some stems and things. But using the chemical control, you can take cast out soap, essential oils, and a neem oil. And I wanted to show you guys what that looked like. So this is cast out soap, Dr. Brunner's cast out soap. You can purchase neem oil. I will put a link to all of these products that I talk about in this video on the description of the video. You can go to my Amazon store. You can purchase these things there. And then this is BT. This is one particular type of BT. And again, it's a bacteria. You mix it up with water, and you can spray this on the plants, and it'll control the caterpillars. This will not control aphids. So, but what you want to do, you'll want to take like a gallon of water. I believe it's like a teaspoon of the soap and a tablespoon of the soap and a tablespoon of the actual neem oil. I'll get the actual calculation, the actual ingredients and the calculations correct so that you're not putting too much. Because you can actually kill a plant with neem oil. You put too much neem oil on a plant, you'll cover the stomata and the plant can't breathe and it can't carry out respiration at night and it can't bring in carbon dioxide to carry out photosynthesis, and so you can actually kill a plant by smothering it. So you want to use this sparingly. You want to use as directed because you can do a lot of damage with this to your plant. You'll also want to invest in buying one of these spray bottles here. You can buy these at like Home Depot, garden centers and things, Amazon. Again, like I said, I'm put that link. You can buy it off that link. They usually range between $10 to $20. They'll hold a gallon of water and it'll make mixing up your cast out soap essential oil mix very easy. And then also spraying it onto the plants. But what you'll want to do is you'll want to mix that stuff up and you want to spray it on the plant. And if your infestation is really heavy or really bad, you'll want to wipe those leaves with a cloth. And then you want to treat and repeat this every 7 to 10 days until you see no more aphids. And again, like I said, your plants are going to be in quarantine for at least 40 days. So you're going to repeat this every 7 to 10 days and during that 40-day period. Reason being, that's the life cycle of the aphids. If they can reproduce and have a new aphid and things within 7 to 10 days. So you want to make sure that you're staying up on that, because if you don't, what'll happen is you'll have a whole nother generation. You'll think you'll wipe them all out, and then you'll have another generation. Okay, spider mites and false spider mites. Spider mites are not actually insects, but are arachnids like spiders and ticks. They belong to the subclass Acari, which includes mites and ticks. They have 8 legs and spin webs on the underside of leaves. They are hard to see with the naked eye. They look like tiny moving dots on the leaves. The way you can test to see if you have spider mites, you can take a piece of white paper, put it underneath on a branch or a leaf, and you tap that leaf. And if you once you tap that leaf, if you see what looks like the period at the end of a sentence moving, you have spider mites on your plants. Another indication that you might have spider mites, you'll see webbing, like on this bottom picture here. You'll see webbing amongst the right at on the leaves as well as the stems, and that would be an indicator that you might have spider mites. Now, if you have false spider mites, they don't produce that webbing, but their damage that they cause to the plant is very similar. There are numerous different species of spider mites, so you need to know, which one you're dealing with. But they'll all have the same treatment. So spider mites are sap feeders. They use their piercing sucking mouth parts to suck the sap out of leaves. Leaves will have spots where they have been feeding, and this is what the damage looks like in this picture off to the right. The leaves will be disfigured, brown, wilted, or may even curling of the leaves. What happens also, the leaves just might start dropping off. You'll have this massive defoliation where just multiple leaves will fall off the tree, the plant or the tree or whatever you brought in. That could be an indication that you have spider mites. And like I said, webbing may or may not be present depending on what species of the mites that you have present. All right, so management, look for spider mite damage, inspect for webbing, use a white piece of paper, like I said, to see if you detect spider mites moving. You want to use a cast out soap essential oil spray. You want to spray both sides of the leaves. You want to take a sponge and wipe the leaves off. If you are squeamish about wiping the leaves, you can just spray the water soap mix. The soap will kill the mites, but you need to repeat this every 7 to 10 or every 10 to 14 days until you see no more mites. Again, spider mites, they can actually kill a plant. So you want to get this particular, this particular arthropod under control, because if you don't, they can actually wipe your plant out. Like I said, they cause massive defoliation. And if your plant doesn't have leaves, it can't carry out photosynthesis, and then your plant will die. All right, any questions before I talk about thrips? I'm not sure if there's even broadcasting in the other groups. Did you see it in the Black Farmers Nationwide? No questions? All right, we'll talk about thrips now. Okay, thrips are small, slender, fringed, winged insects ranging in size from 0.5 to 15 millimeters in length. They belong to the insect order Thysanoptera. Whether you're talking about 1 thrips or 2,000 thrips, you always refer to them as thrips. That S is always at the end. So if you just have one, you're still going to say 1 thrips. The damage they cause by thrips is called stippling. It's brown spots on the leaves, and the leaves become papery and distorted. Here I have a leaf from a cucumber plant I was growing, and you can kind of see the thrips on there. These little white specks that are on the leaf are the actual thrips, but this is the damage that they cause. And they're very small, but they can fly, and they can be very hard to control once you have an infestation of them. Some thrips can actually vector or spread plant diseases like impatient necrotic spot virus and tomato spotted wilt virus, both of which can kill plants. So just be mindful of that. Annette Fuller said, I came to YouTube from Facebook, couldn't access it in Black Girls Garden Group. And I said it was broadcasting. I have check marks and everything. I don't know. Sorry about that. I tried. Because I have on my end everything was clear, but I didn't see anybody like from that group asking questions. All right, so thrips can be very difficult to manage due to their ability to fly in the adult stage. They can spread to other plants very quickly. So this is why it's important that you quarantine your plants, because things like thrips, as well as winged aphids and other insects that are able to fly, um, they can find other plants in your home. So that's why it's very important that you quarantine them a distance away from your home house plants, or anything that you can anything that you can do to protect your other plants. You want to do that from these ones that have been outside exposed to everything. But anyway, like I said, they're hard to manage. They can spread to other plants very quickly. Populations are controlled outside by natural enemies. So some of these things would be like lacewings, predatory mites, and parasitic wasps. What you'll want to do is you'll want to use cast out soap, essential oil, water mixture, and you'll want to spray those leaves. But you'll also want to prune infested branches and leaves, or any of those that are damaged, because Number one, those leaves are never going to improve, and they're just going to bring down the plant's, overall health if it has dead leaves and things on there. But also, it still contains those thrips, and so you want to cut those off so that the thrip cannot further spread on that plant or spread to other plants. Then you want to purchase what are called blue sticky traps. I don't have blue ones. I do have yellow ones. Um, but basically, I'll show you guys what that looks like. So sticky traps, you can purchase these as well. These are yellow ones. We'll talk about these when we talk about fungus gnats as well as white flies in a second. But you can use these sticky traps to trap the adults, and if the adults are trapped, they can't reproduce, which means they can't you know make a whole nother generation that'll feed on your plants and things. So Tiana Liska said, I shared it on Black Girl Garden group too. Shar Carter said, I came to YouTube, could not access from Facebook. I don't know what's going on Facebook because it's acting like it's streaming it. It is on the urban farm system. Right. In these groups though, it's not showing up. Yeah, I don't know. Well, at least it's on the other thing so they can watch it, I guess, later. Yes, people are sharing. Okay. All right. So we're gonna talk about fungus gnats because I know a lot of you were dealing with this in the groups. Um. So fungus gnats belong to the order Diptera. They are true flies. They're actually flies, so they are the same order as mosquitoes, house flies, fruit flies, and other flies. Fungus gnats are small flies that look very much like fruit flies, and they're one of the small field flies. I did a whole video about the small field flies because each fly, to control their populations, they require a different treatment. You can't just use one thing on them because they all attracted to different stuff. Um, these particular flies will infest soil, compost, hydroponic media, and other decomposing organic plant matter. Um, so I know a lot of you say you'll buy bags of soil and stuff, and when you plant your plants in the pots, you'll start seeing all these little flies flying around, or you'll bring plants in and you'll see all these little gnats flying around your house. That's what these are. These are the fungus gnats. So fungus gnat adults are not the problem, it's the larvae that cause issues. Fungus gnat larvae can be found in soil and media used for growing plants. They feed on fungi and organic matter growing in these substances. So they'll feed on organic matter that's in your soil. Say if you're growing in hydroponics, they'll feed on your organic matter that you use to plant your plants in hydroponics. So that would be the say you use coconut coir, that's plant based, it comes from coconuts. It's breaking down the fungus gnats. They'll lay their eggs in there if they're soaking wet. They'll lay their eggs in there, and their larvae will feed on that. But what the problem is that the larvae will also start to feed on plant roots, and the larvae will damage plants. And if you have a really big infestation of fungus gnat larvae and they're feeding on your plant, they can actually kill your plant. The adults themselves do not feed at all. So the first indicator that you might have a fungus gnat problem is you'll have stunted or slow growth in the first. Uh, and then if you do not get the infestation under control quickly, the plants can be killed, especially young seedlings and immature plants. So it's always wise that you don't overwater your plants because that will attract these particular flies and they'll lay their eggs. Um, again, yellow sticky traps are very effective against adult control. You do not want to overwater your plants. This causes root rot, which also attracts the fungus gnat flies. That root rot, it'll have fungi growing on those rotting roots, and that's all that fly needs is to sense or be able to detect that smell of those fungi, and then they'll come in, they'll lay their eggs, and then you'll have an outbreak of these flies in your home. So what you want to do, you want to clear all dead plant matter from around your plants. Leaves that have fallen in the water or around the base of the plant offer the perfect meal for fungus gnat larvae. If you suspect you have an infestation, first check your soil, or if you're growing in hydro, check your substrate around the roots for tiny white larvae with black heads. And I'll go back to this picture. So they look like this in this top picture here. They're kind of white, transparent looking color, and they have little black heads, and they'll be found right by the roots. If you see that, that means you have a fungus gnat issue. Also, if you see fungus gnats flying around your plant, you might as well assume that you have fungus gnat larvae in your soil. Um, so what you'll want to do is you'll want to add Bacillus Theringiensis israelensis. This is a different type of BT bacteria, but this one particularly targets flies, and in particular they use it mainly for mosquitoes, but it's also effective on fungus gnats and drain flies as well as some midge flies. So what you'll want to do, you can find this in mosquito dunks or mosquito bits, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. I have some of those here. They're also in the picture there. So you can take these mosquito dunks if you can't find the bits. This time of year, what's happening now is that a lot of this stuff is being taken off the shelf because it's the end of the growth season. We're getting into cold weather. Mosquitoes are going to start dying out, so they're not selling this on the actual shelves. But you can find the stuff online, and again, I'll probably provide a link that you can purchase it if you're having problems with fungus gnats. But basically, you can take these mosquito dunks, or if you find the bits, or there are some liquid forms of this particular BT that's for mosquitoes. The liquid form is just more expensive. But if you find these bits or you find these dunks, you can take these dunks and crumble them up, and you'll put them on the top of your soil, and then you'll water them in. And what will happen is that bacteria will be reactivated. The toxins that are in there will be reactivated, and it'll prevent the fungus gnat larva from developing to adults. It'll kill them. It'll do the same thing basically that it did to the caterpillars. It's a bacteria. It causes a bacterial infection in the gut, and then they just won't feed anymore, and then they'll die. All right, so Maya Simone said, "No wonder," shaking my head. These were the bane of my existence. Yeah, fungus gnats can be annoying. They will be around your plants. They don't really go around garbage and things unless there's like some plant matter in the garbage. Um, but yes, they will infest your plants. Their larvae can cause damage and destroy your plants. All right, so white flies. Now these are my nemesis. The greenhouse whitefly belongs to the order Hemiptera and is in the family Aloroididae. They are not actually flies, but are related to other true bugs like mealybugs, aphids, and scales. They are major agricultural pests, host range of more than 250 ornamental and vegetable plants. Poinsettias, begonias, uh, nicotianas, asters, calendula, cucumber, lantana, tomato, grape, Ageratum bean and hibiscus are some of the most commonly infested plants. So they're kind of small too. They're not as small as the thrips, but they're pretty small. Um, this bottom picture. I mean, their populations can explode very quickly, and if you're bringing a plant indoors, their populations will explode very quickly because there's no natural enemies to keep their populations in check. And so you can if you have like 5 white flies that you don't detect, you can have thousands of them with by the end of the week, and then you just have numbers that are just so hard to control. And anytime you go past a plant, you'll see like little white puffs flying off, and that's them. Um, so if you find out that you have white flies, the first thing you want to see is their damage. Heavy infestations can kill a plant. Common signs of whitefly infestations are stunted growth, yellowing of foliage that eventually turns brown and crunchy, premature leaf drop. They also excrete honeydew, and they can cause sooty mold fungi to grow on leaves, and that can further cause your plant to die. They also vector a number of plant diseases. Since they have those piercing, sucking mouth parts, they can easily transmit a virus, bacteria, or fungi directly into the plant. So they've been known to um, they can transmit diseases that can wipe a plant out. Natasha Allen said, "What did you say about treating gnats with cinnamon?" I didn't say treat fungus gnats with cinnamon. I said treat them with BT, the BT mosquito dunks. Here, I'll go back to that slide. This is what I said treat fungus gnats with. You need yellow sticky traps for the adults. You need either mosquito dunks or mosquito bits, or you need liquid BT. And the BT that's specifically for fungus gnats is Bacillus Theringiensis israelensis, BTI. And that's that's found inside those mosquito dunks, bits, and this liquid BT. You'll put that in the soil, you'll water it in, and that will actually like I said, that will kill the larva. They will stop feeding, and then they will die, and they'll never turn to adults. So then you can get their population under control. To control the adults, you have to use those yellow sticky traps. Okay, so to control greenhouse whiteflies, basically they can be very difficult to manage in an indoor environment. Um, Hence the name greenhouse. A lot of times greenhouses have a huge problem with greenhouse whiteflies. Um, I know it's getting close to the holidays, and people, they get plants like poinsettias and things that they'll bring in for the holidays, and they'll bring those plants into their house. Poinsettias are huge vectors of greenhouse whiteflies. So if you purchase a poinsettia and you have house plants, or you have your plants that you're overwintering, you want to put that poinsettia somewhere else to where if anything's on it, it can't access your other plants because they will transmit greenhouse white flies, and all your plants in your house will end up with them, and they're so hard to control because you'll think you got the population under control, you think you got them all, and if you miss a week of treatment, you'll have a whole new generation that is just sucking all the sap out of your plants. So be mindful that when you're bringing in, especially plants for the holidays, and people are gifting plants and things, that these can actually be sources of infestations. Annette Fuller says, "Do you recommend removing all damaged leaves from plants?" So no, I don't recommend moving all damaged leaves, especially if the plant is young. I would recommend, say if it's a aphid problem or something, is to leave those damaged leaves on there until new leaves develop. Because if you take too many leaves off, your plant's not going to be able to carry out photosynthesis because it won't have any leaves to do that. They carry out photosynthesis actually through the actual plant leaf. And so if you take them off or you take off too many and they don't have enough, the plant won't be able to survive. So yeah, your second question was, can you remove too many leaves to damage the plant? Yes, you can remove too many leaves that you will cause it to die. Now the plant could regenerate itself. Say if the roots are still healthy and things, it could regenerate. But if it's a young plant, a lot of times taking off all those leaves is just too much stress, and it will actually wipe it out. Okay, so for the greenhouse whiteflies, what you'll want to do is you want to use yellow sticky traps. They're very effective at controlling the adults. You'll want to use cast out soap, essential oil, water mix like you used on the other insects. You'll want to wipe the leaves to remove eggs and nymphs. You'll want to prune infested branches and leaves or totally remove heavily infested plants. If you have a plant that's just covered in greenhouse whiteflies, I would suggest don't even bring it in. Just either try to treat it outdoors or just count your losses of that plant, because you don't want to bring this in because these will be a huge problem. Between this and thrips, they are so hard to control. You just don't want to bring that trouble in if you don't have to. If you see a few on there, try to get them under control that way. But if you have a plant that's just covered in them, you just have to get rid of that plant. Things like tomatoes. Tomatoes are a huge one of their favorite plants besides poinsettias. Uh, so if you're bringing in a tomato plant, you want to check it for these white flies, and if you find them on there, you need to start treating it while it's still outside. And then maybe cover the plant so that it can't get further infested by other white flies or other insects. But you do not want to bring that in until you get these under control because they will be everywhere on all your plants. And they, like I said, they can vector a number of diseases and they can actually wipe out your plants with those diseases. You also want to use a hand vacuum. Um, so using one of these handheld vacuums to capture the adults as well as capture some of the nymphs that are on the leaves is very beneficial as well. You can actually vacuum up the adults and then take this little chamber here and put it in the freezer overnight. And freezing them will actually kill them. You don't want to vacuum them up and then dump this in the garbage can or something. Because I told you again, they can fly, and the vacuum doesn't always kill them when they come in here. They'll just be trapped in here, be flying around in here. But if you put them in the freezer, they can't tolerate cold temperatures, and that will kill them. And you just throw them away after they've passed away. But this is also a very beneficial tool to use for a number of different insects. You just want to put on the low setting, and if it's a young plant, I would be very careful so that you're not, sucking up the leaves and breaking them. But if it's an older plant or a plant with, really strong, sturdy leaves, you can actually use this to suck up a number of different insects, not just the white flies. You can use this to suck up aphids and other things as well. All right, so they also have biological controls for the greenhouse whiteflies, and those would be lady beetles, lacewings, parasitic wasps, and things like that. But again, I'm pretty sure you guys don't want to release those into your home, so just know that when they're outside, those things will feed on those. All right, so bringing your plants indoors, some of your plant requirements, because I, I don't think a lot of you understand. Like when you bring it in, you have to set your environment up to be conducive for that plant to actually to survive. Um, it's one thing to bring it in, but if you don't have the right environment, you might as well just left it outside because you're going to set it up for failure when you come in, if you don't have these proper things. So for plants to properly grow indoors, they need the following. They need proper lighting, adequate water, correct balance of nutrients, correct pH, proper environmental conditions. Excuse me. That would be temperature and humidity. If any of these are off, are out of balance, or missing entirely, your plant will quickly start to exhibit problems that can stunt growth or cause your plant to die. So once you've actually gotten the insect thing under control, then you got to make sure your environment is conducive for this plant to actually live. So I know I'm gonna go through a few issues that people have encountered, and I've seen them over and over again in those groups. People ask those same questions over and over again. Why do my plants look like this? Why is it doing this and this and that? So I'm trying to cover some of those um real quickly as it pertains to either established plants that you're bringing in from outdoors or plants that you're trying to start from seed. Plants need light to grow, and plants achieve their best growth under sunlight. When you decide to bring plants indoor, you need to recreate that light that plant will receive outdoors. Without proper lighting, a plant cannot carry out photosynthesis and other biological processes. Nutrients cannot be absorbed, which can cause abnormal growth. All right, so some lighting issues. Leggy growth. Seedlings have long, stringy, weak stems that look stretched. So a leggy plant looks stretched, and this is due to them not getting enough light, or you're not using the correct light. When you're starting seedlings, you never want to use a LED light. You always want to use a fluorescent light to start LEDs if you're going to put them under artificial lighting. LEDs do not give off the correct uh, what is it spectrum that they don't give off, as well as the heat, um, UV. There's certain UV and things that the seedlings need that are not um, they're not present in an LED light that you would find in a fluorescent, or of course through sunlight. So incorrect lighting, again, you do not want to use incandescent bulbs. You do not want to use those. You want to use light with high lumen output in the correct color spectrum. So if you're just trying to get your plants to grow some green leaves, you're just trying to hold them over the winter time until spring. You'll want to have a light that allows for vegetative growth. So this is usually blue or white light, which is 4,000 K or higher. And I offer, growing classes, especially in hydroponics. So if anybody's interested in that, you can talk to me after the class about that. Um, but you know, there's specific spectrums of light that the plant will utilize to carry out certain life processes or certain biological processes. So you just need to be aware of that. I also have people that say, you know, I'm gonna put my plants in. I have a window and it has sunlight coming in. You know, if and I always have to ask the person, is that window facing south? And first thing they'll say is they don't know. And then they'll say, "Oh, I don't know how to determine that." Well, basically, uh, if you're bringing your plant in and it's not facing a south-facing window, it's not going to get the light that it needs uh, to um, to actually thrive. So in the wintertime, the sun, because of the Earth axis and things, and changing seasons, the sun is in a different position than it would be in the summertime. But it's in that south-facing region, the sun is always present. Now, in the summertime, the sun is a lot higher, so you can get sun, a little bit on the north side and things like that. But you always want to have your plants where they're always going to be exposed to the sun, which is on that south side. So you want to, if you don't know if your window is a south-facing window, you can take your phone. Most phones have a compass on there, and you can determine which side which window is a south-facing window. If you find that it's a west or east or north, your plants are not going to get enough light in that window. Also, that south facing window has to get at least 8 hours or more direct sunlight. Now, if you have trees and things that are in the way and they'll cause cast shadows and stuff, then your plant's not going to get enough light and they're going to suffer. So then you're going to have to incorporate artificial light. So if you incorporate artificial light, you want to make sure you have the light close enough to the plants, because if you don't, you'll have that leggy growth again. So new seedlings should be no more than 3 inches away from the light, directly over top of it. Light on the side will cause the plants to bend toward the light. That's what we have going on in these pictures here. Then we had the one in the middle that didn't have enough. The light was too far up, and so they're leggy. You have the bent ones off to the left, and then you have the ones to the right. They actually were growing like they're supposed to. Um, you want to make sure your light source is where it needs to be. It's the correct light source. But you don't want to have the light too close. So if your plants are growing under this light, uh, you don't want the plants to touch the light. Touching the light can actually burn the plant. You'll have burn spots, and that burn spots kind of look like thrip damage. So you got to know what you're dealing with when if you're dealing with a thrips issue, or if you're dealing with actually that your light burned your leaves. So you need to look at that and see what the leaves touching the light and things like that. To prevent this, you'll need to put the light on a stand where you can raise the light up as those plants grow bigger and taller, so that they're not touching the light and getting burned. All right, so we're talking about some watering issues really quickly. Both too much water and not enough water can be devastating for your plants. pH of water can affect nutrients dissolving in the water and the plant's ability to absorb those nutrients. So these are some plants that I actually grew in a hydroponics class. This is some collard. I'm sorry, this is kale up here, and this is actually a zucchini that I had grown in hydro. Um, but if your nutrients are off, even in soil growing, even indoors, your plant's going to suffer. All right. So what you want to do is you want to test your soil's moisture. And you know what? Earlier I talked about if you overwater, the issues that you'll have with overwater, which would be root rot. We'll talk about that in a second. Um, but you want to test the soil moisture. You want your soil damp. You don't want it soggy. If you're in an environment where it's really warm in there, then what will happen is your water will evaporate a lot quicker, and your plant will utilize the water a lot faster. So you're going to have to constantly be watering, but you need to observe your plant. You need to check your soil, on a daily basis to see if you actually need water, because you don't want to overwater it, but you also don't want it to dry out either. So if you give your plant too much water, your roots have to breathe, and what happens is you actually drown your plant. Symptoms of a plant that is drowning: it'll start to droop, the leaves will start to turn yellow, and then you'll experience root rot, which will attract those fungus gnats, and we don't want to attract those. So be mindful of the water levels, and also the same thing can happen in hydroponic systems. Um, hydroponics, everything's in water, but you also have to be mindful of the level of the water and things, and you have to know where the air roots are on the plant and all that, so that you're not drowning your plant. Because if you do, you'll have that root rot, and then you'll attract those fungus gnats, and then you'll have a problem that was preventable just by you monitoring water levels or monitoring soil moisture levels. All right, pH issues. Most plants have a pH range they grow best at, which is usually between 5.5 to 7.5. So plants don't grow uh um plants don't grow outside of 7.5. Um it becomes too basic. So if your pH is too basic or it's too acidic, the plants cannot carry out its biological process, and it affects growth. Nutrients the plants need are soluble at certain pH. So over here we have a picture of different nutrients, and on the bottom it says most plants' ideal pH is between 6 and 7. And so it shows you which nutrients are dissolved and what level they are dissolved in that water. If you go out of that pH range, certain things like calcium will not be dissolved in the water, so then the plant can't get the calcium. So then you deal with like blossom end rot and things like that. So you need to check the pH of your soil. You also need to check the pH of your water, especially if you're using tap water and things. It could be that the pH of your tap water is too high or it's too low, and it could cause problems with your plants. Now, if you have to adjust the pH, there are different. You can buy what is called pH adjusters. It's pH up or pH down, and you can usually get that like at a pet store. And I'll also put a link on there so you can adjust pH of your water and things if you have to. Again, plants, their range, pH range is 5.5 to 7.5. So, say your water is at 8 or 9, you might have some problems where some nutrients are not going to get dissolved in that water because that pH is too basic. All right, temperature humidity issues. Temperature affects plant growth. Being too cold or too hot can slow, stop growth, or eventually kill a plant. Temperature affects nutrient absorption. Research the ideal temperature range for your plant. Putting plants in a garage that is not heated will not be any different than leaving them outdoors. Also, be mindful of drafty windows or doors. They can cause problems as well if they're letting that cold air in. Humidity. An ideal humidity range for most mature plants is 50 to 60%. Some tropical plants, such as a pineapple, and I know a lot of you growing pineapples, are accustomed to humidity levels up to 90%. Low humidity will cause dry leaves. Also, your leaves won't be as shiny and things. And high humidity, you can start experiencing issues with fungi, molds, and things like that, as well as some bacterial problems that can grow on leaves and in the soil and things like that. All right, so in conclusion, to properly prepare your plants to come indoors, there are some measures you're going to have to take. You'll want to quarantine, you want to inspect, you'll want to treat, and then you want to repeat those steps. You must know the proper requirements for your plant so that you can stay healthy while it's indoors. So anybody have any questions? Appreciable assets. Can we agree Nadia is awesome? Thanks, appreciable assets. Shara Carter said, yes, Nadia is amazing. Thank you. Samaya Simone said, would you recommend an affordable grow light? Yes, I'll actually provide a link to that too. It's also on my uh Amazon page. I'll put a link to that particular light. It's a fluorescent light. Um, Samaya Simone said, I'm interested in the hydroponics class. Okay. I'll put a link to that in the description as well, to the hydroponics class for those that are interested. Annette Fuller said, thanks again. Are palm plants succulents? I don't believe they're succulents. I know they're tropical, so if you live in a region that's going to experience cold weather, you're going to have to bring those in. So Maya Simone said, Nadia is amazing. Thank you so much. You're welcome, and thank you. Shar Carter, I saw another question up here. Can you share the model of the handheld vacuum? This is a Dirt Devil Vibe. Can you see that? Dirt Devil Vibe. It's a plug-in model. Have you grown Leaf of Life? No, I haven't. And what would be another name? Would that be Moringa? If it's not, I have grown Moringa. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened with the Facebook thing. Because it says I'm live. So. But yeah, everybody said they couldn't see it. So I don't know. Let's see, is there any other questions? Someone in one of the groups said I need to get rid of or fight off ground squirrels. So that's a different thing. You have to set up fencing. You might have to have some type of predator present, like cats or something, for squirrels, as well as like chipmunks and stuff like that. Any type of small mammals. You got to set up barriers. But also the presence of predators will also deter them as well. Okay, no, I've never grown Leaf of Life. Unless it's under, like I said, another name. Natasha said, are you talking about Mother of 1,000? Yes. I'll have to look at that link later once I log off. I mean, I've grown so many plants, but I usually either know the scientific name or what they're known by locally here. So. All right, any other questions before I sign off for this evening? All right, well, thank you guys for tuning in this evening. I apologize for the Facebook groups. I'm not sure why it's not streaming. It says I'm live and I'm live and active in the rooms, but I don't know why it's not showing up. I thank you guys for tuning in on another outlet. I will post a link to the video into those groups so that other people can watch them. But thank you for tuning in. And I will talk with you guys later and have a good evening. Good night.